Welcome back, everyone. New research has revealed Australian kids are some of the worst behaved students in the world. And our next guest says it's a clear sign we should be teaching children more self-control.
Michael Hawton is a psychologist who's mastered the art of taming unruly adolescents, so he's our hero. He's called the Teen Whisperer, and he joins us today with some important advice for parents. Michael, good to see you.
Thank you very much.
It's startling, I should say, to hear how badly kids are behaving. You know, we're talking about the news now, particularly in schools. Why is this such a widespread problem?
Look, it's indeed startling to hear that children are misbehaving in schools like they are. It's kind of backed up by some other research that came out in New South Wales recently that showed that a rise in school suspension over the last 5 years has gone up by over 30%. I think we need to recognise that teenagers are going to push boundaries, always. They're going to try on new ideas and try on new hats and try different things. But it's clear from the research that the kids who do best come from families that are warm and firm, where mum and dad are warm, they care for their children, they look after them, but they're also firm. And firm comes down to respect. Respect for yourself, respect for your parents, respect for your teachers. And I think the concerning part of this particular research is that children are not respecting their classmates because they're interrupting them. And so part of the problem here, I think, is teaching young people to respect the people that look after them, their teachers and their parents, but also their fellow classmates.
It sounds simple, but when teenagers get into trouble, it's generally there's risk-taking involved, there's bullying, even substance abuse.
Yes.
So as parents, how can they step in to protect them from these things?
I think the best thing that parents can do is work out their role. I teach parenting programs around Australia, and I teach parents that they've got 3 roles. One is to help your children get things in proportion, get perspective. As adults, we have the fully functioning adult mind, and our ability to see things is clearer than a child's mind or a young person's mind. The second thing, I think, is to teach children the ability to think about appropriate and inappropriate behaviour. So parents can help kids to know it's not appropriate to bring your phone to the dinner table. You know, we leave phones over there, but while we're having dinner, we're phone-less, so to speak. And then the third thing, I think, is for parents to take care of children's well-being. Now, if you, for example, have a child who's not getting proper sleep, let's say they're not, as a teenager, getting their 8.5-hour sleep, which is the recommended kind of amount of sleep they should be getting, then clearly we need to take steps to help them get that sleep. And that might mean taking the phone off them. That might mean putting your phone into the basket, the charging basket. Or it might mean downloading an app for smartphones or for Androids that switches the phone off at 8:30, so that your children get the right amount of sleep.
But everyone has their own way of raising kids. You can't tell people how to raise kids, you can only advise them. But you say we should be careful of overreacting.
I think if we want
like dramatising as parents, or what do you mean by that?
Well, I think that parents can approach problems matter-of-factly if they know how to do it. One of the issues, of course, is that when parents face 2 types of problems that I see. Some of them are ones where your teenager does something outrageous and you feel really angry about it or cranky about it as a parent, and you take them on in the hallway before, you know, and you go for it.
You picked the wrong time.
Possibly. And we're all living very fast lives, so it's not surprising that this happens. The other types of problems are ones that build over time, and then something happens and you say, I'm not doing this anymore.
Right.
And I'm going to have it out with my teenage son or daughter.
Pressure cooker.
Pretty much. The straw that breaks the camel's back.
Yeah,
correct.
Right. So what's the best way to involve ourselves without overstepping the line?
Well, I think we need to think like pilots. See, what pilots do really well in an emergency, so that they might feel a bit of fear, but what they actually do is keep a lid on that fear for the time that they're resolving the difficulty. And the same goes with resolving things with, or problems with teenagers. Need to be able to come at it with a bit of a plan. What pilots do well is they learn away from the situation to know what to do in the situation, and that's really important. But in terms of our parenting ability, sometimes we need to start with the end in mind. You know, Covey used to have this idea of beginning with the end in mind. If we want a child who's self-controlling or self-regulating is the kind of new term for this, then we need to think in those terms. We need to think, well, what can contribute towards that? You might remember during the 60s there was a Stanford University lecturer called Walter Mischel, and he had the famous marshmallow study. Do you remember
yes,
when they put the marshmallow in front of the child?
Yeah.
And that was the ultimate stress test for 4-year-olds.
Right, yeah,
Right?
of course.
Because they had to decide, do I eat it now? Because the researcher said, look, you can eat this now, but if you eat it now, there's no more.
Yes.
But if you don't eat that now, I'll bring you one in, if you can wait for 15 minutes, I'll bring you 2.
Yes.
So these poor little kids, of course, are going,
They're tortured.
and they're tortured, and they're licking it. Most of them ate it.
Yes.
Now, we're interested to know about the kids who didn't eat. The kids who didn't eat were 1/3 of that group, and importantly, those children had started developing impulse control, because when they measured them 15 years later, what they found was that the now 19-year-olds did better at school, had better frustration tolerance, and got on better with their peers.
Interesting.
Very
For more
interesting.
of Michael's expert advice, pre-order a copy of his book. It's called Engaging Adolescents. I think we all need to get
I think
onto
we
it.
do, because we need to
and
start
read
with
it.
the end in mind
by
reading the book.
Thanks,
Thank
Michael.
you very
Thank you
much
very
for
much.
that.